we find the volume of is rectangular prisms. We don't have to do it for triangular prisms or pyramids or anything like that. So what's different from volume to surface area, which is what we've been working on, is, hang on, let me get these lines a little thick, is that volume is the amount of space inside the shape. So for example, we've talked about surface area. That's like how much cardboard fits around a tissue box. Surface area would be like how much cardboard is around the tissue box. Volume would be like how much space is inside to fit those tissues. If we're talking about like a water bottle, surface area would be how much plastic makes the water bottle, whereas volume would be how much water can fit inside. Okay? Or a sandbox. Surface area would be how much wood it takes to make up the sides of a sandbox. Volume would be like how much sand fits inside. Okay? So we are talking about the amount of space inside a shape. There's two different ways that we can calculate volume. The first is length times width times height. And I did a cursive L because otherwise if we do a regular lowercase l, it looks like a 1, which gets kind of confusing. Okay. Whereas length is the front of a rectangular prism, width is how far it goes back, and height is how tall the prism is. Okay. There is another way that you can find the volume of a rectangular prism, and that is by taking the area of the base. Here they have it drawn in red on the top, but also remember that in a rectangular prism, whatever is on top is also on bottom. Okay, so we're taking the area of that base. We use a capital B to mean the area of the base, and we multiply it by how tall the shape is. And that's because this base is getting repeated over and over again. Think about it getting like stacked on top of each other over and over again, however many times that height is. Okay, so that is how we can also find the area or the volume of a rectangular prism. Okay. I like to default to length times width times height. However, sometimes you're going to be given a problem that it gives you the area of the base, and you just need to remember that all you have to do then is multiply it by the height. Okay, but otherwise, I really like to use the length times width times height. Okay, so for example number 1, we've got our length of 4, width of 4, height of 6. So we're going to do 4 times 4 times 6. And with multiplication, we just multiply two numbers together at a time. It does not matter the order because it's all multiplication. But if we want to get into the process of order of operations, it would be left to right. So the first two numbers we'd multiply together are 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Then we'd have 16 times 6. If we don't know what 16 times 6 is, that's fine. We just pull it to the side and we stack them up. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 3 is 9. Okay, so our answer is going to be 96. Now, what's different between surface area and volume? Surface area was like centimeters squared. That's for surface area. For volume, it's centimeters cubed. Because in surface area, we were only ever multiplying two numbers together at the same time, whereas now we're multiplying 3. We have a 3-dimensional shape. So it's going to be 96 centimeters to the 3rd power. Okay, so surface area is always squared. Volume is what we call cubed. That's what to the 3rd power is. So we just circle that final answer. Okay, and that's how you find the volume. It's honestly way easier than surface area in my opinion. You're just multiplying length times width times height. Okay, so since I don't doubt your ability to be able to multiply 3 numbers together, I am going to kind of like shake it up a little bit by adding in fractions, things like decimals, in order to make this a little bit more difficult. Okay, so we're finding the volume of each of these prisms. If you feel confident to multiply fractions, you can go ahead and pause the video and then just resume to check. Otherwise, follow along with me for example A, and then you can always pause it and try example B on your own. So first we've got our length, which is 7/8, times our width, which is 1/2, times our height, right here was 5/8. Okay. You can choose to multiply all three together at the same time. For example, you can do 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 5 is 35. Or you can choose to group two together, get an answer, and then multiply it by the third number. Whatever you prefer. 8 times 2 is 16. Then I'd have to do 16 times 8. And I'm not sure what 16 times 8 is, so I just have to pull it to the side, multiply it out. 6 times 8 is 48. Will be 128. At this time, I'm not going to focus on you simplifying your fractions. What I want you to focus on is being able to find the volume of a rectangular prism. Okay, so our answer would be 35 over 128 meters. That's an M. Sorry, it's like glitching out. Meters cubed. Okay, so same thing for this one over here. We are going to take our length times our width times our height. So we'd have 3 over 2 times 3 over 2 times 3 over 2. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 once more is 27. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 more is 8. Last thing we have to do is put a label on it, inches to the third power. Okay, so that is how we find volume. Flipping on over to the back side, if you are feeling confident, I want you to pause the video and try this next one on your own. Okay, and then just resume the video to check. We are finding volume, so we're doing length times width times height. So length times width times height. So I'd have 7 times 5 times 3. Starting left to right, I would do 7 times 5 first. 7 times 5, if I need to use a multiplication chart, that would be okay. It would be 35, and then 35 times 3. If you don't know what 35 times 3 is, that's all right. We just stack it to the side and multiply it out. 3 times 5 is 15. Write my 5, carry my 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus the 1, 10. So our final answer would be 105 centimeters to the third power, centimeters cubed. Okay. All right, here's where we're going to get into a new problem. So if you feel confident and you kind of know how to do this, that's okay, work ahead. If not, pay attention because it's a little bit different question. We're missing the height. Okay, we're given the length, we're given the width, and we're given the volume. Okay, so here's where I'm going to kind of just write out that volume equation, length times width times height, and we'd have 8 times 5 times, and then we can't fill in a number for h yet, so we're just going to leave it the height, and we're going to put it equal to 120, because once we have those three numbers, we'll multiply them together, and that's how we would get 120. Well, we've got 8 times 5. We know that that's 40, so we can simplify that part. And 40 times our height is going to be equal to 120. Okay, well, let's use some mental math. We've got a 4 and we've got a 12 if we were to drop off both those zeros. 4 times what is 12? 4 times 3 is 12. So we'd get 3 is equal to our height. 3. Here, I'm going to rewrite that. 3 inches is equal to our height, because 40 times 3 is 120. You could have also, like using a fact family, like if we know 4 times 3 is 12, we could have also done 12 divided by 4 in order to get that missing number, right? So we could have done 120 divided by 40, and that also would give us that 3. So there's many different ways you can do that, whether you want to do mental math or use the opposite operation of multiplication, which is division, in order to solve it. That would work as well. Last one. Again, if you're feeling like you want to challenge yourself, at least try to start number 5. And then at any point that you get confused, you can pause it or resume the video and then follow along with me. Here we've got a pool. It's 1/5 full of water. Okay, so it's not very full. We want to know how much water is in the pool. So we want to know how much volume can it hold. And then once we find out what the whole entire volume is, we want 1/5 of that. So our first step would be just finding the volume. 12 times 6 times 10. 12 times 6, if we're not sure, we could use a multiplication chart for that. That is on there. But we could always pull it to the side if we're not sure what that fact is. And we would get 72. 72 times 10 is 720. Okay, now we want 1/5 of that. So if we want to divide that up into like 5 groups, because it's 1/5 of that, we're just going to take 720 and we're going to divide it by 5. And you're just doing your long division. 5 can go into 7 once. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract, bring down. 5 can go into 22 4 times. That would be 20. Subtract, bring down. 5 can go into 24 times. Subtract, nothing to bring down. So we are done. 144 feet cubed would be how much water it would be when it's 1/5 full. Another way you could have solved it is our length is 12, our width is 6, and if we only want it 1/5 full, you could have noticed, well, if we just take 1/5 of 10, or 10 divided by 5, we get a height of 2 feet. So that all we'd have to do is 12 times 6 times 2, which would also get us to that 144. So if you solved it that way, that would be fine as well. Whichever works for your brain best. If you wouldn't be able to realize that 1/5 of 10 is equal to 2, then just multiply it out and do your long division. Either way, you'll end up with the same answer. All right, so that is how we find the volume of a rectangular prism.